Tia, Jeff Chue, and the CEO from RAF, Dr. Eugene Watson. We also have in our mess the Acting Director General of the Department of Transport, Ndate Matabata Mukonyama, as well as the Deputy Director General, Chris Labisa, the heads of departments from various provinces who are here, our traffic chiefs, as well as officials from the three spheres of government and the entities of the transport sector. We've got yourselves, members of the different media houses, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, it is more befitting and appropriate in a situation of this nature, confronted with this unparalleled and a mixture of misfortunes, agony, misery, and pain caused by irresponsible human behavior, to take a leaf from the words of one of the renowned leaders and human rights activist, Malcolm X, who said, and I quote, there is no better than adversity. Every defeat, every heartbreak, every loss contains its own seed, its own lesson, how to improve your performance the next time. Close quotes. I take this opportunity to convey our heartfelt condolences to the families who lost loved ones during the period, and our well wishes to all those who are still recuperating in hospitals as well as at their different homes. I also wish to convey a word of gratitude and appreciation and thanks to the Deputy Minister, the Premiers, Ministers, and all MECs for taking charge of the situation and assisting in stopping what was initially threatening to be a runaway train. Their efforts helped to pull our country from the edge of a precipice. It is also befitting to appreciate and thank all law enforcement officers, our emergency services and health professionals who worked long hours, sacrificing family time to help us save lives on South African roads. I'm aware that some officers lost their lives in the line of duty during this period. Our condolences also goes to their families, friends, and colleagues. Ladies and gentlemen, it is saddening to know that as we gather here today, there is a mother in a village who is staring blankly at the picture of a daughter or a son she was expecting to come home for Christmas or New Year's Day. This was supposed to have been a celebratory reunion, but sadly was not to be. Her hopes had been high until she received the news that her beloved had died in a car crash on their way home. Since this eventful moment, the life of the family has changed for the worst, and life will never be the same again. On the other hand, somewhere in a prison cell, a young man is sitting with his head buried in his hands as he contemplates the damage that his reckless, irresponsible, and selfish bravado has caused. Tomorrow, as his young daughter dons her school uniform for the first time in her life and begins her first day at school, he will be standing in the dock, facing a magistrate and pleading for his freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come from one of the most challenging festive seasons which stretched our resources to the limit, which also put a strain on our law enforcement operations and unleashed untold misery on many families. However, we remained unrelenting and resolute through it all, and we prevailed against all odds. It is also important to note that the festive season road safety program is not implemented in isolation, but forms part of an ongoing 365-day program that the Department of Transport and its agencies, in conjunction with our transport stakeholders and the general public, carry out throughout the year to ensure that lives are saved. Ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect on the 2016 festive period, we are prepared to expose the harsh truth behind the mayhem that the country has experienced and admit the period's shortcomings. In doing this evaluation, we are inspired again by Malcolm X when he says, and I quote, "You are not to be so blind with patriotism that you can't face reality. Wrong is wrong, no matter who does it or says it. If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything, close quotes. In December 2016, the department, its agencies and stakeholder partners announced various measures to be undertaken to promote the safety of people on our roads throughout the festive season. As part of these measures, the Cabinet of the Republic also called upon South Africans to observe and obey the rules of the road. A significant amount of financial resources were invested to promote awareness, intensify enforcement, and upscale general visibility. Public education and awareness campaigns were launched, and some are still running across different media platforms, including radio, television, newspapers, and below-the-line media. Strategic partnership with the likes of Engen Petroleum and Trace Urban TV channel on #RightWise campaign has gone a long way in planting seeds and inspiring other stakeholders to follow suit. Ladies and gentlemen, we will accept that the back-to-back extended long weekends that characterized the 2016-17 festive period posed a big challenge to road safety, and that the rainy weather provided a complicating factor. We must equally accept that in most instances, the competence of our drivers leaves much to be desired. The fact that an overwhelming majority of fatal crashes were as a result of a single motor vehicle overturning and head-on collisions points to the incompetence of our drivers to handle their motor vehicles. This buttresses the point in the aspersion of rampant corruption within our driver licensing testing centers, DLTCs, compounded by the voluntary collusion and participation by our road users in their unflinching desire to acquire driver's licenses. There is an influx in our roads of drivers who are not competent and qualified to be driving on our roads. Such drivers lack appreciation and comprehension of the importance of road signs and golden rules of the road. I have instructed the Road Traffic Management Corporation to undertake an audit of how driving licenses as well as roadworthy certificates are processed and issued in our testing stations so that we can have an appreciation of how it is possible that so many incompetent drivers and unroadworthy vehicles could be on our roads. Equally important is to understand the role played by private testing stations and driving schools in facilitating the issuing of documents to unqualified motorists. Equally important is the directive given to the Acting Director General to ensure that he places the issue of provincial heads of departments attendance in COTO, which is the Committee of Transport Officials, and prioritizing road safety and law enforcement agenda in their plans. We would like to focus our audit on these centers and drivers who obtain their driving documents from those centers. On the basis of our findings, it is also expected that the affected individuals can be called back for re-evaluation. South Africans, if you got your learner or driver license through dubious means, know that you will soon lose it. It cannot be that people can escape with such impunity. Our people deserve the best, and it is our duty to uproot these much detested practices and get to the core of causes of these carnages and fatalities. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been gratified during this festive season to know that some traffic officers have taken a bold stance against bribery and corruption. Traffic Officer Mr. Fulton Flinger of the Eastern Cape stands out amongst the no-nonsense officers who does not take bribes. This officer, who is based in Aliwal North, arrested 4 motorists who tried to offer him bribes to avoid consequences for speeding and possessing fraudulent documents. This officer has consistently arrested those who believe that our officers are up for sale. Officer Flinger is a shining example of a morally upright and ethical traffic officer that we are proud to have in the fraternity. And we really need more of Officer Flingers in our fraternity. I also commend the National Anti-Corruption Unit, for their efforts to ensure that we eliminate unethical traffic officers who solicit bribes from motorists. 3 Northwest traffic officers and some from Gauteng were arrested during this period. I urge the MECs to follow up on these cases and ensure that departmental steps are taken to hold these officers accountable. Wrong is wrong, and it must be punished. Ladies and gentlemen, our traffic law enforcement officers conducted more than 432 roadblocks throughout the country during this festive period, and they issued 453,263 fines for various traffic offences. Of particular interest is that 28,238 of these fines were for drivers who failed to wear seat belts, whilst 4,046 were for using cell phones while driving. About 6,805 unroadworthy vehicles were suspended or discontinued, while 2,501 other motor vehicles were impounded. To clamp down on drunken driving, speed, and other moving violations, the officers arrested about 9,175 motorists, and 5,943 of them, which is 65%, was for drunken driving. A total of 18 drivers were arrested for driving at excessive speed of between 182 kilometers per hour to well above 200 kilometers per hour. The highest speedster was arrested in Gauteng, traveling at 239 kilometers per hour in a Mercedes-Benz on R21 near Tshwane. The latest speedster appeared in court yesterday after he was arrested traveling at 207 kilometers an hour. Driving under the influence of alcohol, failure to wear seat belts, using cell phones while driving, excessive speeding, disregarding road conditions and signs reflect the negative attitude that many motorists have towards the rules of the road. Ladies and gentlemen, the period under review saw the introduction of about 253,478 additional vehicles on our roads, which represents 2% increase, and 506,387 new drivers into our road network, representing a 4% increase. It is worth mentioning that the most problematic days of the week in terms of road fatalities and crashes remained our weekends. However, our intensified law enforcement saw stabilization and the reduction during the weekdays. This is due to extraordinary extended long weekends of the festive season. Ladies and gentlemen, preliminary indications show that road fatalities increased in 5 provinces and declined in 4 provinces, namely the Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, Western Cape, and Northwest. A total of 1,714 fatalities were recorded in this festive period, which is a 5% increase on the previous period. The Eastern Cape, with 211 fatalities, recorded the biggest decline in fatalities, with a reduction of 20% compared to the same period last year, when it had 265 fatalities. We want to congratulate and commend the Eastern Cape leadership, demonstrated by both the Premier and the MEC, for the sterling work as they marshaled their troops towards the attainment of this significant reduction. The same goes for Northwest, which recorded 8%, the Western Cape 6%, the Northern Cape 5% reductions. Keep up the good work and remain our shining stars. This is a clear indication that it can be done and we can win this battle against recklessness on our roads. It is disturbing to note that the Limpopo province recorded the highest increase of 31%, moving from 186 fatalities in the previous period to 244 in this period. KZN and Free State equally recorded an increase in the percentage of fatalities at 18% and 17% respectively. We need to get to the root cause of these unwarranted increases and ensure that we implement our plans to the latter. What is alarming, ladies and gentlemen, is the 4 provinces of KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, Eastern Cape, and Limpopo jointly accounting for 61% of the total number of people who died on the roads in this period. This year, we have seen a high number of passengers dying on the roads compared to the previous period when pedestrians constituted a high number of fatalities among road user groups. A clear sign that our our passengers are not using seat belts. Passengers constituted 40% of fatalities, pedestrians 34%, drivers 24%, and cyclists 2%. Children aged from 0 to 4 contributed 6% of pedestrian deaths. The gender mostly affected was males, with quite a disturbing contribution of 75% of the total fatalities being our young men. Females contributed 23%, which marks a 2% decrease compared to the previous year of the fatalities. Females can still do better. Women bring life to earth, and women must enhance and protect life. And we need to make sure that women actually start ensuring that they contribute to less and less fatalities on the road. Ladies and gentlemen, very disturbing of this number, 81% is apportioned to blacks, whilst the remainder is shared amongst colored, whites, and Asians. Light motor cars contributed 49% to the total crashes, followed by light delivery vehicles at a contribution of 18%, and mini bus vehicles with a contribution of 10%. The taxi industry must do more to reduce the number of crashes caused by their vehicles. Remember, one taxi or minibus carries 15, 18, or 22 people, and therefore 10% means the big number of people that would have perished in that particular crashes. The Department of Transport published amendments to the National Road Traffic Regulations in November last year, aimed at regulating the transportations of persons in the load bay of light delivery vehicles for reward. The regulations will come into effect in May this year, and they will assist in the reduction of the number of passengers dying in collisions involving light delivery vehicles. Remember, on the LDVs at the back, there's no seat belts. So obviously, when people are involved in crashes, it flash, and it is important that we reduce that particular type of tendency. Less and less people must be transported in these light delivery vehicles. Ladies and gentlemen, necessary actions will be taken to turn the situation around. Building on the previous and recent experiences, the department will continue to improve its enforcement policies and strategies and upscale public safety campaigns. Specific interventions going forward are as follows: review existing legislative instruments to identify areas that need strengthening and further improvements, strengthen coordination and existing partnerships within government and outside government to maximize the impact of the public education and awareness programs, continue with endeavors to improve the state of our roads and public transport systems, take further steps towards the implementation of the driver license demerit system. Further technological innovations will be pursued, continue our engagements, and finalize with Department of Justice to introduce minimum sentences for negligent and reckless driving. We are seeking to reclassify drunken driving from a Schedule 3, which is less severe, to a more severe Schedule 5 offense to ensure those who negligently cause crashes on the roads do not get bail easily and spend time behind bars. And our cross-border operations will be strengthened to deal with the high incidence of cross-border minibus vehicles that are overloaded with both passengers and goods. Ladies and gentlemen, the arrest of a minibus driver from Zimbabwe who had 31 passengers in his vehicles points to the need to strengthen cooperation with our counterparts in the neighboring states. It is noble to recognize and thank those that have been law-abiding road users who made it to their destinations without any incidents. This they achieved by simply adhering to the rules of the road, driving within the set speed limit, buckling up, avoiding the use of cell phones while driving, using roadworthy vehicles, remaining calm irrespective of challenges confronting them on the roads, taking regular stops to avoid fatigue and avoiding the use of alcohol while driving. Ladies and gentlemen, achieving the goals that we have set as the Department for the greater safety of all South Africans is a long-term program. It will require greater cooperation between the Department and all citizens of the Republic of South Africa, including those who are visiting as tourists and who are here to work. We have committed ourselves, and we shall achieve it by enforcing the law rigorously every day, ensuring that we act without fear or favor, and maintaining constant high levels of visibility on all hazardous routes. We take solace in our understanding that the rate of increase in fatality was brought down due to urgent interventions that were implemented after the meeting of December 20 with heads of departments and traffic chiefs. Indications at that moment were that we were facing an onslaught of unprecedented proportions, and we agreed to release resources to struggling provinces, intensify road safety communication and education campaigns, and strengthen monitoring of our law enforcement operations. These interventions helped us to contain the situations against incredible odds. Indeed, the experience of 2016-17 festive season have proven what the Nigerian author Ben Okri observed when he said, and I quote, "The most authentic thing about us is our capacity to create, to overcome, to endure, to transform, to love, and to be greater than our suffering." Close quotes. We will now begin the task of planning for the next peak travel period by ensuring that we allocate resources appropriately, that we plan and manage over time, and we reduce fatalities every day of the year. We will use every day and every weekend as preparation for the peak periods. We will not lose the momentum created by the efforts we put in this festive season. The Department will continue to implement ongoing campaigns to ensure that we significantly reduce the fatalities by the end of the United Nations Decade of Action for Road Safety campaign in 2020. Though the picture seems bleak and the hope for those who lost their loved ones may dwindle, we remain steadfast in our commitment to confront lawlessness and rogue usage of our roads. We will forever be inspired to tell the truth, no matter what the circumstances might be. Let me once again reiterate what our fellow freedom fighter Amika Cabral once said, and I quote, "Hide nothing from the masses of our people. Tell no lies. Expose lies whenever they are told. Mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. Claim no easy victories." Close quotes. We all shoulder the responsibility as South Africans to ensure that we are always safe on our roads, as well as always jealously protecting one another. Remember the Sesotho saying that says, "Sitshwarwa ke ntjapedi, ha se tlholwe ke sebata." Together we shall win this battle, and I thank you.
Thank you, Minister.